Ladies and gentlemen, it is my proud pleasure to announce that the Honorable Prime Minister has shared a message with us on this momentous occasion. It is truly a remarkable moment for the country, and it is my honor to read out the Prime Minister's message for you. The Honorable Prime Minister has written, and I quote, "I am pleased to learn that a webinar is being organized by the Cellular Operators Association of India within brackets COAI, in association with the Department of Telecommunications. The theme of the webinar is especially of interest since it is about 25 years of mobility, Desh ki digital Udaan. When the first mobile call was made in India on the 31st July 1995, very few would have known the possibilities that it could usher in. Indeed, reality has painted the picture of a digitally connected world better than what we could have imagined. From voice calls to webinars, from 2G to 5G, from digital elitism to digital democracy, the journey of digital connectivity has covered an astonishing distance. The connectivity was a privilege. Now it is a tool of empowerment. Digital mobility is literally an enabler of multiple other kinds of mobility: social, economic, and informational. The companies active in the ecosystem of digital connectivity have done yeoman service to the poor and underprivileged by ensuring connectivity reaches them. Any government that is truly looking to transform the lives of people will find digital connectivity as a resourceful ally. For example, the way our government has conceived and operationalized the JAM Trinity, Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile, has revolutionized citizen government connectivity and shattered silos. Even in India's exemplary fight against COVID-19, the Arogya Setu app, enabled by the wonder of digital connectivity, has been an asset. Now that our digital connectivity ecosystem has scaled many peaks, it is now time to focus on self-reliance and security. It would be great if the webinar can brainstorm about a roadmap to achieve end-to-end self-reliance in connectivity infrastructure, as well as ensuring greater security at all levels against threats. I commend COAI and DOT for the excellent work so far, and also wish them great success in the future. May this webinar unearth exciting new possibilities and give greater momentum to India's digital journey." Unquote. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for sparing your time to send us this wonderful message.
Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given a clarion call for Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant India. But this does not mean India in isolation, but India as a robust contributor in the global supply chains. Honorable Prime Minister has also set a goal of making India a $5 trillion economy. Telecom sector has to play a major role in achieving that goal. Government and the industry needs to work together to achieve these goals. I wish all the success to the organizers of Desh ki Digital Udaan, this event and following webinars.
Glorious 25 years of inception of mobile services in India. I must congratulate every stakeholder, be it a policymaker, regulator, licensor, telecom service provider, vendors, and every telecom warrior who made this possible for India to leapfrog in the telecom sector, taking the subscriber base to 1169 million and achieving the overall tele density of 86.66 in the year 2020.
Beginning 1995, we have witnessed phenomenal growth, adoption of new technologies, penetration and proliferation of mobiles across the length and breadth of India. Mobile telecommunications has become central to India's development story. Today, mobile phones are the backbone of e-governance, e-commerce, value-added services, and most important, empowerment of citizens. The mobiles today are, without doubt, a necessity.
Today, over 1 billion people are connected in India, and not just in cities and small towns, but deep in villages and rural areas. Indian story of 1 billion people connected on the mobile network, of which nearly 600 million people are on broadband internet, is a story which is unparalleled anywhere in the world. I also feel the time has come for India to take a lead in the area of local manufacturing. Prime Minister's vision of Atmanirbhar is giving us all a clarion call to ensure that more and more value added is done in India for the telecom networks, for mobile devices, and of course accelerate even more our software abilities in the country.
25 amazing years. What a proud milestone it is in our nation's journey of progress and prosperity. Desh ki digital Udaan. You could not have thought of a more appropriate name for this commemoration. India truly took a big flight into the bright future with the advent of mobile telephony in 1995. This is also an occasion for us to look at the obstacles that have prevented Indian consumers and Indian society from fully benefiting from the digital revolution. Here I specifically refer to the fact that India still has 300 million mobile subscribers trapped in the 2G era. Their feature phones keep them excluded even from the basic uses of internet. At a time where both India and the rest of the world are standing at the doorsteps of 5G telephony, I think necessary policy steps should be taken with utmost urgency to make 2G a part of history.
I am delighted to have four very, very senior industry leaders in the shape of Mr. Anand Agarwal from Sterlite, Mr. Sanjay Malik from Nokia, Mr. Rajesh Nambiar from Ciena, and Mr. Anku Jain from Media on the panel today with us. Welcome to all of you gentlemen, and it is my pleasure to connect with all of you, and special welcome to my old friend Anku as well. Good to see you.
So I fully agree with all the discussions that happened just before this, that the last 25 years were about connecting India, about telecom, and about coverage. And the industry did a great job in bringing the tele-density when we think about 1995, it was close to 4-5%, bringing it to over 90% right now. Most of the country today is connected with mobility and has seen tremendous gains from that in terms of productivity, efficiency, and across the board in terms of connection.
When the first GSM call happened, we were about 5 to 7 years behind the globe, behind some of the other developed countries from the technology perspective. And today, 5 years later, we are kind of shoulder to shoulder with the developed countries on 5G launch. So that's a big leap. From again industry employment, we were like just about 1,000 people at that time, and today we are employing around 4 million people into this telecom industry.
This is a great movement, as all of you said, and as Anand and Sanjay also reiterated, that we are celebrating this 25 years of mobility in India. And I believe that we at Ciena have been a part of the journey as well, in not as long as probably what the other two were, but at least about the last 15 years or so with a local presence, and even before that without a local presence. We not only look at just the market in India, right? We also look at investing heavily into the R&D centers and our labs that we built here. In fact, India is the second largest lab for us worldwide.
We have actually democratized computing, and it's great feeling that the mobile ecosystem is accessible to the entire gamut of population in India. So I think we have played a big role in doing that. So this, as you said, the journey, we have played a great journey from feature phone to smartphones. and also from 2G, 3G, 4G, and of course 5G right now. So we have been part of this journey as well. So MediaTek's vision is that we would like to make connectivity an equal opportunity.
Well, we knew at that time that the mobile has to be a public thing, but for that the pricing has to come down. The pricing was very high per minute at that time, and we were charging peak hours 16 rupees per minute and 8 rupees per minute on our normal hours. So this was very high and not sustainable for the public at large. I must give a credit to Atal Bihari Vajpayee. When he became the Prime Minister of India, we told him, do you want this product to be for masses or for classes? He said, no, we are selected here by the people of India, so we would like this product to be for the masses.
Welcome to the second episode of the 25 years of mobility series, Desh Ki Digital Udaan. We received a tremendous response for the first episode, and we have another informative and engaging session today. The 25 years of mobility series is presented by the Department of Telecom and COAI through the IMC studio. My name is KG Purushothaman. I'm a partner and a telecom sector lead for KPMG in India. I will be the moderator for this afternoon. To get things started, I invite Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochhar, DG COAI, to deliver the welcome address. Dr. Kochhar is a decorated military veteran who retired as the head of ICT wing of the Indian Army, where he was responsible for planning, executing, and operating all telecom and IT networks of the Army, as well as keeping his team of 100,000 fully trained and skilled personnel and managing them. He was also the first CEO of the Telecom Sector Skill Council. Welcome, Dr. Kochhar, and we look forward to your welcome address.
Thank you, Mr. Purushothaman. Ladies and gentlemen, I take this opportunity to welcome our guests, Mr. Akhil Gupta, the Vice Chairman of Bharti Group, Mr. Nitin Bansal, MD of Ericsson, Mr. Badri Gomatam, Group CTO of STL, Mr. Randeep Raina, the CTO of Nokia, Digvijay Sharma, Senior Director Sales of Ciena, and last but not the least, Jonathan Homa, Senior Director Solution Markets, Ribbon Communications. Welcome, gentlemen, to this second webinar in a series of webinars that we are doing to celebrate 25 years of mobility in India. 25 years ago, the first mobile call was made in India. Today, we are at a level which we could never have thought of at that time. It also gives me a great pleasure to say that today, not only has mobile communications completed 25 years in India, COAI, Nokia, and STL have also completed 25 years of their existence in India. If we look at these 25 years in perspective, we have come a long way. From a simple mobile A call which used to cost 22 rupees at that time to now is a metamorphic change. The mobile phone itself has changed a lot. We had a very simple voice telephony mobile at that time. Today we have a small device which is a computer, a camera, a communication device, all rolled into one, and which meets all the requirements a human being can want. The penetration of mobile has even surprised many. The rural folks who may not have electricity at home will carry a mobile. At times they will not carry only one mobile, they'll carry two mobiles, and they will travel 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers just to get that mobile charged, because there's no electricity in the village. But this is the situation we are in. And I'm so glad that the Prime Minister has taken it upon himself to make some declarations from the ramparts of Red Fort this year, and said that we are going to roll out a huge amount of fiber and reach each and every village within 1,000 days. That is important. And that in addition to that, there are some policies that the Honorable Prime Minister has announced, like the cyber policy, which is going to affect telecom rollout in a major way. Now, these are forerunners of what is going to come. Short of a miracle, India is heading towards in the hands of our citizens. And most of this penetration is going to increase in rural areas. And that is what we are now going to sit and discuss about. We are going to hear eminent speakers, we are going to hear panelists in these sessions. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I will not steal the thunder from our speakers, from our esteemed panelists who are here with us, and I will leave you to them so that you can actually hear their views as to how this journey is going to proceed. With those few words as an introduction, ladies and gentlemen, I now hand you over back to Mr. Purushothaman to take us through the proceedings of the day. Thank you so much.
Beam, a seed, the one that shoots up, springs, life that kindles, never dies out. Arrow, a goal that inspires, future that intrigues, amazes, in a new, fresh, invigorated form to take the giant stride. STL, beyond tomorrow.
It's been said, two are better than one, stronger than one, greater than one, and more potent than one. It's true, two are better than one when the two act as one. And together, we two are one. Ribbon and ECI, one team.
The last 25 years of mobility have been about connecting people, and we have connected more than 1 billion people, thereby improving the access and changing the way the nation communicates. We have seen transformation in the telecom networks from 2G to 3G to 4G, and now 5G is round the corner. With more than 1 billion devices expected to be connected, in fact, more than 25 billion devices expected to be connected by 2025, the future of mobility is not only bright, but also a need of the growing enterprise. The first speaker today, I have the privilege of inviting Mr. Akhil Gupta, Vice Chairman of Bharti Enterprises and Executive Chairman of Bharti Infratel Limited. Mr. Akhil Gupta has led the formation of various partnerships for Bharti with leading operators. He has also conceptualized and implemented the transformational initiatives, including the outsourcing deals, as well as number of initiatives in the passive infrastructure industry.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address all of you as the Indian telecom industry completes its 25th year. To me personally, it's an even important and more privileged honor because I've had the rare privilege of being in this industry from day zero. And that makes it a very special industry for me because I've lived through it, I've grown with it. As you can imagine, in 25 years in any industry, a lot happens. But telecom industry is a mega industry in terms of what all has happened. So many things have happened in this industry that's not funny. This industry in 25 years has seen the peaks of success many times, and it has also seen the troughs of despair and failures many times again. It's difficult to, sum everything in a short address of what all has happened in 25 years. But if somebody was to ask me as to the two most noteworthy things about this industry in 25 years, I would have no hesitation in saying there are two. One, this has been the most transformational, incredibly successful industry which has connected India, which has enabled digital India, which has enabled the Aam Aadmi of this country to be introduced to telecom. First on the voice side and now on the data side. So that's the pinnacle of success which I think this industry has got. Second part, unfortunately, is in the reverse direction. This has also been the most value destructive industry that perhaps this country has seen in the last 25 years. But before I go into the reasons for these seemingly contradictory two elements, let me just very briefly elaborate on both these aspects. So first, let me take the good news, which is the success of this industry. Many of you would not even know it, especially the youngsters, but those who were there would remember that in 1995, when this industry was privatized and the mobile services were introduced in India, first in Calcutta in July and then quickly followed in Delhi, India was at a position where it used to take more than 20 years to get a telephone connection. The biggest favor a politician could do in this country was to get you a telephone connection out of turn. From that, to come to a state where you virtually instantaneously get a connection today is in itself a very big testimony to what this industry has achieved. We know the rates or the tariffs in India have been the cheapest in the world. Just to give you an example, in US, 1 GB of data today costs about $12.50. In UK, roughly $6.6. But in India, it costs 13 US cents. That is the kind of big variance in the pricing. And what has that done? It has allowed every person in this country, virtually in every nook and corner. We cover roughly 98% of the Indian geography today, and perhaps a little more than that in terms of population. And therefore, this is one service which was unthinkable for common man. It has gone to everybody. I think that's about the achievement, because there are so many more which have happened in between. But if I was to sum up, that sums up the achievements. Let's look at the destruction. I think this is one industry which had the maximum investment. I think the overall investment today, I don't have the exact figures, but would have been well over $120, $140 billion overall in this industry. But unfortunately, from a peak of 13 to 14 operators, today we are left with 3. I'm talking of the private sector. So what happened to the rest? Some of them got merged or bought out. Some of them had to shut down. Some of them, 3 of them, big ones, are in insolvency: Arcom, Aircel, and Videocon. This has been mayhem. Almost $40 to $50 billion and hundreds of thousands of jobs have been lost in this process. So what happened? I mean, this is such a dichotomy that an industry which is so successful has had so much of destruction. So let's look at the reasons. What happened? Because this seems so contradictory. The reasons are broadly two. And one which is, I think, an easy one for everybody to put the blame on is regulatory. Everybody knows that this industry, right from day one, has been treated as a milking cow. Now, every successive telecom policy, ending with the latest digital communications policy, always has professed that the aim of the government is not to maximize revenue out of telecom, but to increase penetration. Unfortunately, this is one industry which has suffered the maximum taxes. Today, even today, we pay roughly, if you include GST and license fee and spectrum charges, roughly 30% of the total amount spent on this industry goes into taxes. That's virtually like treating it like a sin industry, like tobacco or alcohol. The second big factor responsible has been very, very high spectrum prices. We all know that the spectrum in India has cost the maximum perhaps in the world. So those were the two regulatory factors. The third factor has been irrational introduction of competition by giving too many licenses at one stage and thereafter not curbing predatory pricing. I think these factors together on the regulatory front did result into quite a bad situation. The other factor has been excessive litigation in this sector. And we have seen, even today, we have a big AGR case going on. There used to be a time when we always believed that any agreement with the government will always be benevolent when it comes to interpretation of clauses. Somehow that has been completely reversed today. And today the fact is that every word which you sign with the government in a contract has got to be more carefully vetted than even a contract with the private sector. That change, I think the litigation did kill this industry. But it will be wrong to say that the operators didn't have any blame to share. It was right that when there was excessive competition, obviously the pricing was terrible. But even when the competition was somewhat, right with 3 or 4 players, even then I think this industry has gone into uneconomic pricing. Predatory pricing, again, as I mentioned, was not checked, and therefore this industry kept on getting into a deeper mess, and that's where we find ourselves. But let's look at the bright side. Let's look at the future, because what has happened. We know where we are. Now, as far as future is concerned, I think there can be no doubt that the future of this industry is perhaps the brightest amongst most of the industries. And the reason is very simple. Whatever we see in terms of technological advancement, we talk of IoT, we talk of artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality. We are talking of 5G, which will do all kinds of remote surgeries, driverless cars. I mean, the list is endless. There is so much of content which has already been created. One common factor which is needed is telecom networks. And therefore, the future of telecom industry is obviously bright. The recent problem and the current problem which we are facing with COVID has reinforced it, because very clearly what this has reinforced is, without telecom, economies will collapse. The fact is, world over, the world would have collapsed today, but for the fact that we had 4G and we had the telecom networks, thereby people could actually work from home. Therefore, the future of telecom looks good. Data is the new thing. Data localization is bound to happen. This is going to give rise to many new avenues of revenue, like data centers, like wireless fixed broadband, enterprise services, video conferencing, and so on. So I would say future is not in doubt. We have a bright future. There is a great potential. So the question would be, what is needed? I think what is needed, very simply, first of all, this is an ever-evolving industry. We are at the doorsteps of 5G. This industry needs capital investments. we need to keep on expanding networks. And in order to do that, I think 2-3 things will need to be done. One, the government will need to walk the talk. They would have to now start living the fact that on spectrum, they need to keep minimum pricing. We should perhaps also, the government should look at a situation where instead of equated yearly installments for spectrum payments, maybe there is a ballooning payment, increasing payments over the years. So as the network gets established and the revenue streams start coming in, maybe the annual installments can keep increasing. That's one factor government can look at to ensure the financial health. The second has to be very clearly on pricing. I think if the operators themselves don't maintain that discipline, my feeling is the regulator must not hesitate in stepping in. There is currently a consultation going on in terms of floor pricing. And I think while everybody supports free pricing and laissez-faire, but if for a vital industry like telecom, at some stage, regulators need to step in to ensure financial health, they must. One other factor is the right of way. I think there a lot of work is being already done by DOT and by the state governments, and I'm very confident that those things should be in good place over a period of time. The regular taxes which are charged on this industry, needless to say, need to come down. There is no reason why this industry should have 18% GST, which is virtually the highest slab. I think those rationalizations need to take place. But with these, I am very confident and I am very optimistic that we are going to play a second innings, which is going to be even brighter and even more successful than what we had in the first 25 years. This is an industry which the nation depends on, a whole lot of employment, direct and indirect, depends on. Capital formation can be the maximum in this industry. And I think it's the duty of all the players connected to this industry, whether we are in passive infrastructure sharing, which by the way should move on to also active sharing very soon to make again the industry financially healthy, whether it be operators, whether it be government, regulator. It's the duty of all of us collectively to ensure that India remains and actually leads the world in telecom evolution as we go forward. That I think, let me summarize by saying the future looks good, but there is a lot of responsibility on each one of us. And I'm certain that we will all rise to the occasion and make sure that India attains its place in the sun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Akhil Gupta. That was really insightful.
The ways that we make things have changed overnight. Once wired and tethered, we're now wireless and light, and at least twice as smart with our digital twins. For in this new making, the agile one wins. So when markets or customers say, "I've changed my mind," we bend like a yogi, rethink and refine. We act on our insights and make a new line. The brain is the network, so nimble, so smart, secure and reliable. In essence, the heart that fuels the new making and all it can be, from shipping to logistics to factory to sea. Go all-where. Networking solutions for the new age of industry, like manufacturing. Nokia.
And now we have our next speaker for this afternoon. I would like to invite Mr. Nitin Bansal, MD India and Head of Network Solutions for markets in Southeast Asia, Oceania, and India for Ericsson to take the stage. Nitin has spent more than 16 years in Ericsson and has led various leadership positions in sales and business development across different markets. It's been always a pleasure to hear Nitin speak about the transforming changes in the telecom networks. Welcome, Nitin, and we look forward to your session.
Hello, everyone. I'm really delighted to be participating in the celebrations for 25 years of mobility in India, aptly titled Desh Ki Digital Udaan. Happy to share that Ericsson's journey in India has been for over 116 years. Since 1903, and our commitment to this market has grown over the years. During this period of coronavirus, we at Ericsson together with the service providers, have been continuously working hard to ensure that connectivity works well in this time of need. Mobile networks in India and globally are proving yet again that they can deliver the performance and reliability to support the society in this hour of need. Smartphones and 4G have already transformed the way we communicate, consume, and live. With 5G, we are entering the next generation of mobile communications. Coupled with an array of other new technological solutions like Internet of Things, edge computing, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, 5G is powering the fourth industrial revolution without any doubts. 5G is a platform for innovation. Previous generations were centered around consumer and personal communication. 5G will serve consumers, enterprises, and take the Internet of Things to a next level, where superior connectivity is a prerequisite. As we are aware, industrial digitalization is happening across all segments, and private networks and enterprise networking services are examples of areas already leveraging cellular and 5G technologies. Going forward, we will likely find the most transformative use cases in critical IoT, where speed, latency, and security of the 5G networks are key. Here we can see 5G's potential to transform industries and society at large, with use cases such as smart manufacturing, smart cities, self-driving cars, advanced healthcare, education, just to mention a few. The journey to capture the value of 5G beyond mobile broadband starts now. Industry digitalization opens new opportunities for service providers to build and extend their business beyond connectivity. Addressing these opportunities could enable service providers to unlock additional revenue stream of up to 35% on top of the current scope of business by 2030. In India, what we have been projecting as part of our mobility report, 5G-enabled digitalization revenues will be approximately $17 billion by 2030. 5G is expected to form the backbone of emerging technologies such as Internet of Things, machine-to-machine communication, and will provide India with smart infrastructure that will enable Industry 4.0 and open up new opportunities for the country. To build the momentum for this growth and excel in 5G, it is key to continue investing in 4G. Here, private networks represent a very, very important first step and are fundamental to build a momentum in serving a wide array of 5G-enabled use cases. Closer home, in India, what we have seen is Stanley and Black and Decker recently rolled out a connected smart irrigation project in India, where smart and connected solar-powered water pumps enable energy savings for farmers in India. Smart irrigation and cellular connectivity improves productivity and provides sustainable energy with predictable maintenance for reliable, clean water in off-grid regions. In another example here in Delhi, and I'm sure you have heard about this before, we deployed narrowband IoT-based sensors in partnership with IIT Kanpur at strategic locations in Delhi. These sensors are automated and relay information on defined time intervals, providing data on pollution levels, sources, and locations in a sustainable and cost-efficient way. We are using locally developed air quality sensors that are capable of sharing environmental data, including PM1, PM2.5, and PM10 levels at defined time intervals. So this is one of the projects we talk about in terms of innovating a use case when it comes to 5G. Then again, during the India Mobile Congress in the last few years, we have demonstrated 5G-based connected ambulance. We have showcased a 5G connected drone for medical supply deliveries, for example, and security and surveillance, which we think are very, very relevant for India and very apt for India. On a global level, according to a recent UN report, what they have said is that approximately 30% of the world's food is lost or wasted between farm and fork. This is equivalent to about $750 billion. So there is a Danish company called Globe Tracker, which specializes in monitoring refrigerated shipping containers and offers a solution to remotely monitor and control power loss and equipment failures as containers travel around the world. By transmitting real-time tracking data for refrigerated containers and its sensors, near real-time data is shared with the customers throughout the supply chain from end to end. This prevents loss and spoilage of some of the 1.3 billion tons of food, which would otherwise have been wasted, is now safe. The above example also shows how companies can adopt the Internet of Things to maximize business value by embedding sensors, softwares, and other technologies into their physical assets to connect and exchange data with other devices and systems over the Internet. What we believe is everything that can be connected will be connected, and adopting the new technology is key. So again, referring back to our mobility report, by the end of 2025, what we expect is a 5G to have 2.6 billion subscriptions, covering 65% of the world's population. Meanwhile, the number of cellular IoT connections is expected to reach 5 billion worldwide, up from 1.3 billion today. According to McKinsey, if policymakers and businesses get it right, the economic value to be generated by IoT globally could generate about $3.9 to $11 trillion by 2025. Like many other huge shifts in economy and technology, this is a great opportunity to adopt new technologies and drive business forward. Now, digital technologies such as 5G and IoT are predicted to reduce global emissions by up to 15% by 2030, which will be very, very critical when we are trying to combat the climate change. Globalization and hyper-competition, personalization, and customization are some of the main drivers for digitalization, along with technology maturity, because a good connectivity layer is a foundation for anything and everything that we want to do. There is a noticeable momentum in the market, and that means opportunities for enterprises, but also raises concerns. One of the need for increased flexibility, and the other is security. Two very, very important aspects that we need to consider and manage. As you manage more and more data, which is sensitive to your production, security is extremely important. On top of that, enterprises are facing increasing pressure to improve work safety and to reduce carbon output. This happens simultaneously with the need for increased productivity. With 5G, security is not an add-on, but built in from start as part of the standardization process. That's why we say that 5G is the most secure network generation ever. 5G networks will serve as critical infrastructures to facilitate the digitization, automation, and connectivity to machines, robots, transport solutions, and whatever else we can think of. Now, with billions of connected devices and new types of applications, the networks need to be more resilient, secure, and better able to protect the individual's right to privacy. So how are we addressing these in Ericsson? At Ericsson, we build our products on 3GPP security standards, which is built for connected devices, and we also contribute strongly to the 3GPP security work and other standardization bodies. 5G continues to build on existing strong encryption and brings this forward to also a secure, small, constrained IoT devices in an efficient manner. As 5G cloud computing, IoT, and other technological advancements drive digital transformation across all enterprises, the amount of connected devices will exponentially increase the amount of data transmitted, which will open valuable new access points for attack, which is a given. So we really need to address this. Companies of all sizes, including network operators, must be prepared to keep critical operations up and running, put end-to-end security solutions in place so that they are able to protect their business and mission-critical applications from the start. Here I can share one example with Swisscom, the leading telecommunication service provider in Switzerland. What they're doing is they're deploying an Ericsson Security Manager solution to provide security automation, visibility, and control for the company's security operations center. Integrating the solution enhances capabilities and strengthens protection for critical infrastructure and serves as a model for others. In fact, Ericsson is helping lead the way, announcing our own smart factory in the US to drive sustainable production of 5G, advanced antenna system radios for North American customers. And we are not the only company driving personalized production, as we expect smart manufacturing will become more prevalent in 2020 and enable customization to become a reality. Then we have a product called the Ericsson Iot Accelerator, which is a robust solution built to connect, manage billions of devices and millions of applications easily, seamlessly, and globally. Our IoT platforms help enterprise customers of operators build and scale their cellular IoT efforts faster, growing their businesses businesses of service providers, and IoT system ecosystem at large. At Ericsson, we have a strong and flexible 5G portfolio in place to enable our customers to switch on 5G today in all the main frequency bands that we see globally, and so that we are able to utilize the spectrum assets in the most efficient way. As you might have heard, we signed our 100th commercial 5G agreement or contract with a unique communications service provider last week. And we are currently having 56 live 5G networks across all the continents. Based on our experience, we see 5G having a huge impact across different industries, with implementation of IoT solutions playing an increasingly role across business applications and throughout society. The rapid deployment of 5G networks around the globe and an uptake in 5G subscriptions will drive an increase in the number of IoT connected devices worldwide. So to conclude, what I would like to say is the time to act is now. We see a lot of potentials for 5G connecting multiple devices and ecosystem in India. And we have also demonstrated a few of those as an industry partner. And we need to come together and make sure we are able to use 5G in an effective way to solve the problems in India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nitin.
In the age of networks, everyday tasks are global events. Remember when a concert was just for the fans in the stadium? Now it gets shared out to millions, thousands of miles away. The biggest show on TV isn't just on TV, and getting in shape means everyone knows how fit we are. Yeah. So with thousands of new devices talking to the network every minute, providers have never been under more pressure to deliver. In the midst of all the complexity, it feels like a race for survival. There's a lot of talk that the key to survival is network automation, that automation equals intuition, which it literally doesn't, and that a self-driving network is enough to expel complexity if you're not going very far. At Ciena, we don't fear complexity, we welcome it, because we believe in a bigger idea, something we call the adaptive network. It's a unique combination of automation and intelligence guided by human insight that's built on a highly scalable, programmable infrastructure. It's a network that's set up to figure things out faster, grab hold of new technology, and keep growing and changing just like we do, all with the most open architecture and flexibility in the business. That's how we build the adaptive network. Because in this race, survival of the fittest is survival of the most adaptive. Get ready to adapt.
We have a panel of renowned industry experts who will share their views with us on the future of mobility. The experts that we have today include Mr. Badri Gomatam, Group CTO, Sterlite Technologies, Mr. Randeep Raina, CTO, Nokia India, Mr. Jonathan Homa, Senior Director, Solutions Marketing, Ribbon Communications, and Mr. Digvijay Sharma, Senior Director, Sales, Ciena Communications India. Thank you very much, our esteemed panelists, for joining us for this very important session on the future of mobility. As a matter of introduction, I would like to give a very brief profile of our esteemed panelists before we start our session today. I will start with Mr. Badri. Mr. Badri leads core research in optical communications, products, and network solutions at Sterlite Technologies. With a view of emerging network technologies, Mr. Badri guides the company's technology vision and its implementation strategy. Thank you, Mr. Badri, for joining us today. So Randeep Raina is a business leader with more than 24 years of experience in cross-functional initiatives, managerial operations, and spearheading technology, strategy, improving business profitability, sales, and revenue at Nokia. He has previously worked with Actis and Motorola as well. Thank you, Mr. Raina, for joining us for this esteemed panel and session.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Mr. Digvijay is a sales leader with an excellent understanding of the telecom and telecom industry and the market. And he has been driving a lot of initiatives on business development, solutions, designing, and positioning for Ciena. Thank you, Digvijay, for joining us for the session and sharing your views as well.
Thank you.
And last but not the least, thank you, Mr. Jonathan Homa, for joining us. So Jonathan focuses on optical networking and domain orchestration solutions. Jonathan joined Ribbon from ECI, where he held the same position. In notable prior roles, Jonathan was VP Architecture, Marketing at Nortel Networks, and has also led various initiatives across different organizations in the area of business development and optical switching startups. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan, for joining us for this esteemed session.
Thank you.
With that perspective in mind, I will now take this opportunity for starting the panel as well. And our topic for the day is on future of technologies and future of mobility, which is very, very pertinent in the given time and age. When it comes to future of mobility, it is far beyond just communications. It is about how effectively are enterprises and telecom infrastructure effectively using emerging technologies in their business. It's about how effectively digital technologies are being effectively used in the day-to-day work of the enterprises. Gartner reports that in the last 4 years, the number of devices that have actually been implemented on the AI space has increased by 270%. AI itself is more than a $4.5 billion market. AR/VR as a technology has also emerged with multiple countries implementing AR/VR as part of their products and solutions. By 2022, the expectation is that AR/VR will constitute nearly 3.5 billion devices. This is huge. 5G is around the corner, with a few countries already seeing the benefits of 5G. 5G as its technology is being widely looked at as a game changer for many enterprises. As part of this panel, I would like to inquire with our esteemed panelists on their vision and their perspective on some of these emerging technologies and how they are going to impact the business. I'd like to start with my first question to Dr. Badri. Dr. Badri, with the advent of upcoming technologies such as AI, AR/VR, IoT, the market and enterprise customers are also expected to transform. How do you think our industry is actually preparing for this change? Can you share with us some viewpoints on how you are seeing this market grow and transform?
Absolutely. So the first part, I see a fairly energetic drive is in getting the connectivity elements of the radio technologies and the associated software stacks and hardware stacks out in the market as quickly as possible. And I think there is a fairly robust momentum towards 5G today. But that aside, it's a crucial element in the Industry 4 revolution. And we basically start with the idea that the number of connected devices is going to exponentially increase. But once that increases, what the industry is preparing for it is also investing in both the fundamental silicon technologies to advance the cause of intelligence edge computing, right? Bringing the compute stack to closer to the endpoints of connectivity, or maybe at the endpoints, and driving that into a much more sophisticated way to create inferences. That is, business conclusions, business, analytics, and bring it at a much lower latency, improve the decision-making criteria that are required to get a business impact, and making that all happen at a significantly a better cost profile than what we've seen so far. So that's, I would say, is a nutshell, is a view that we have. So.
Thank you, Mr. Badri. I think what you mentioned is very, very critical. You mentioned about transformation and how, to start with, how effectively connectivity ecosystem itself will actually undergo a change. Can I move to Randeep, your view on what is actually transforming? I mean, as an organization, Nokia is very much into implementation across different technologies. From your experience in other markets where it has already been implemented, can you share with us on what is it that you are seeing when it comes to these evolutionary technologies, especially around AI, 5G, IoT, and AR/VR?
I think, good question, Purushottam. I think from the global deployments that we have seen, there is certainly a good uptake of IoT in one form or other, though we have multiple technologies in the IoT which are currently in the play. For example, LoRa, Sigfox, but they have their own limitations in terms of capacity and capability. But what we see is a precursor to 5G is going to be an embedded IoT play. And that can be played not only with the 5G spectrum, but that can also be facilitated with 4G today. With the available technologies like narrowband IoT, which you can do with 4G technologies, and CATM, where you need high capacity IoT devices to be connected. So we are seeing those symptoms already in some key advanced markets, where not only IoT is being served with 4G, but there is a little bit of play with 2G also, where some of the utility services are being run on 2G services as well. So that is laying a foundation for a bigger change and a bigger transformation to happen as far as connecting the next billion things are concerned. And for that to happen, what we would see is that a whole and a holistic partnership models will have to evolve. It's not just a pure play consumer business anymore, as we are moving from 1 billion users in India to the next billion connecting devices. So it would need a lot of interlock between the regulators and operators. It would need a lot of partnership in terms of creating a favorable ecosystem for those affordable devices and sensors and objects which need to be connected to the mainstream connectivity layer. For example, some of the manufacturing sectors in India are still working or running on Wi-Fi and Ethernet and LAN, which are limited with the capacity and capabilities. And to add to that, it's more also about the security. As we are going away from Wi-Fi into LTE and 5G, the capacity components are high in nature. And that's where we believe that after having connected 1 billion people in India, the next game plan and transformation is going to be not just an evolution of technology, because that we have seen coming in from 2G through 4G. And with the advent of 5G, we will see an accumulation of objects and devices and sensors becoming a part of this whole game plan. And for that to happen, as I said, they can be done even in the current technology with 4G with limited capabilities. But the digital societies of future, they need smart networks. They need smart networks for connectivity, and that is where the foundation of intelligence will come into play. And more important is going to be the consumer experience, because with the advent of 5G, you're talking about very high improved latencies, and for that to happen, you need an automated AR, VR kind of experience. You need an artificial intelligence and service assurance, so that the industries of the future, which need that connectivity, can be assured a desired level of SLA and KPIs under which they can be served. So from that perspective, we are seeing it's just not the infrastructure which will play a role, but it's a whole ecosystem which includes applications, software companies, startups who will have to play a role in making this big change and big transformation to take place.
Thank you very much, Randeep. I think you mentioned what you have specified is extremely critical when it comes to not only adoption, but also when it comes to user experience. And you have actually suggested that in a very nice way. IoT is the use cases of IoT is evolving from being used in machines, wearable devices, home applications, industrial equipments, white goods, you name it, and it is actually, the use cases are ever expanding. Thank you very much, Randeep, for actually sharing your views on that. Jonathan, if I can just move to you on, especially when it comes to IoT, and Randeep did allude to it, but I just wanted your perspective on what you are seeing on the IoT space specifically, considering that the use cases are growing what kind of market with a multi-protocol setup being requested across different technologies, are you seeing IoT being a game changer? What kind of use cases are you seeing on the implementation of IoT, especially when it comes to future of mobility?
Thank you very much. Actually, it's an interesting question. And as part of the 5G solution launch that we're conducting at our own company next month, we actually sponsored a study specifically in the area of gaming. We see a number of specific applications that when you combine it with bandwidth will lead to major changes. So within the whole area of gaming, one of the interesting statistics that we've seen is that users, these are talking about active gamers, have actually increased their usage from about 3.5 hours to 4.5 hours post or pre-COVID to post-COVID. And certainly when you talk about gaming, it's the kind of devices that they would use, but also devices that they can eventually control on other parts of the network. Another major application that we see, which would go along with IoT, of course, is e-health. Between those two applications of gaming and e-health, we see major changes taking place in the way the network will be used. Certainly for e-health, it will be self-monitoring, diagnostics from home at one end of the spectrum to a far end of the spectrum, maybe where you're looking at things such as remote surgery. When you put these together, the change that we see is that users will be willing to pay more for better services in the network. Specifically coming back to the gaming model, based on the survey that we did of 5,000 gamers, and this is worldwide, 60% of them said that they would pay 50% or more for a better kind of connectivity service than they have today. So when you take a look at the big picture, when you combine the kind of broadband network we have and technology that you talked about, including IoT, AR, VR, robotics, image processing, all based in the cloud. A lot of the applications being based in the cloud. When you put that together, we'll just see an increasing virtuous cycle for more and more applications, and people willing to pay more for the kind of connectivity to those applications. But I'd like to take it one step further, if you don't mind, just to sort of complete our company's view on this whole area. Is that we no longer will be able to have a network where one size fits all. When you have more people willing to pay more for different levels of service for different applications, what you need to be able to do is take this common infrastructure and then create stratification of that. And this is a win-win, both for the consumer, but also for the telephone companies providing the services. Right now, we have things like Amazon and AWS, where people pay different levels of, or different strata of payment for different levels of service. And we see we're going to have to move to that same kind of model in the telephone company world. And a lot of what's taking place right now in the network is giving the tools to network operators to provide that. So when you put it together, broadband connectivity, stratified networks, more advanced technologies such as IoT and other types of devices at the edge, we get this virtuous cycle of applications driving more bandwidth and driving more willingness to pay, which the telephone companies can take advantage of. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think that was an excellent perspective, a global perspective. I'll move to you. So Digvijay, if I can just take your views on how, what kind of use cases or what kind of business cases are you seeing when it comes to the emerging technologies, be it on the IoT side, gaming side, as Jonathan referred to, from an Indian context, because you have also been doing a lot of work from an Indian context perspective. So what kind of use cases might be relevant from an Indian context perspective that you think there will be a lot of interest from the consumers?
Yeah, we have already seen benefits of IoT coming in. IoT has been there, my perspective, all along, right? The thing that we think it is increasing day by day in multifold, and it's going to increase further because of the kind of efficiencies that it brings in. There's a study that was done. I'm forgetting the name who did that study, but it was in Delhi, where earlier transmission company. I read it in newspaper. So what was happening? There was a lot of power theft that was happening, and with IoT and its sensors and monitoring at each and every level, they could they could look into where the thefts were happening. So and that led to a lot of optimization and efficiencies within the ecosystem. Similarly, even today, if you look at it, all the fleet owners, right? Whether it's not just about Uber and Ola that we use. They have these mobile phones and Internet of Things connected in it. But if you talk about all these trucks and buses, these fleet owners, they also have IoT in it. They have devices in them, and they are tracked. They know where it is and how much halt it has taken. So efficiencies are increasing everywhere. Even today, with as Randeep mentioned, right? Even today with 4G technologies, IoT is happening, and similarly, so there would from use cases would proliferate where there are efficiencies that are coming into business, where there is a value for money for the investment any entrepreneur or any enterprise is doing. We definitely see, based on our discussion with service providers and few of the enterprises directly, as we deal with them, there is a couple of industrial use cases that are coming to force. That are largely into robotics. Like if you talk about any manufacturing sector, in manufacturing sector, all these robotic arms that are there, they are right now connected through wires. Which is a very tedious task to maintain and manage. So initial use cases there, if it is done by Internet of Things and wirelessly through 5G, I think there's a lot of efficiency that can be brought in, and the maintenance time can be reduced drastically. Those use cases come to fore for industrial uptake. And apart from that, smart cities, it is happening today. We have in Delhi, NCR, we have smart cameras which are capturing the people who are violating the rules, like traffic signals and things like that. So and speed sensors are there. So things are coming up even today. Going forward, it would further increase where it is tied to business and some efficacy or improvement that is going to happen. And those cases could be like in Delhi transmission network that they brought in efficiencies. In case of manufacturing sector, it can reduce the downtimes. And potentially in sectors wherein there is, because of COVID situation, another classic example is that most of the things which were physical in nature are becoming digital in nature. And wherever digital gets in, IoT is part and parcel of that. So as we are progressing, the use cases are many that we can think of, and many more would come out as we continue to proceed in this direction. But largely, I see them getting into effect as soon as there is a return, and definitely there are tons of avenues that come in with.
Thank you, Digvijay. I think that was a very important perspective that you bring in, and very contextualized from an Indian customer perspective. Can I move to Mr. Badri? Considering your experience on actually working on the infrastructure side also, and the kind of challenges that we might actually face as a country, and I know that you, as an organization, Sterlite Technologies, has actually worked on a lot of initiatives on the smart city initiative as well. Just wanted to understand your perspective on how is the infrastructure play going to span out when it comes to implementation of these new technologies? Will it play an important role? What kind of challenges that you think might be foreseen in this when it comes to implementation?
So thank you for setting that context for especially our audience, that we as Sterlite have participated in many forums as well as programs and projects that have driven the message of ubiquitous infrastructure in the context of connectivity. Now, in the future, when you put that in the context of 5G and the future of mobility, the first thing that we all sort of understand is that the number of points of presence of small cells or towers and so on and so forth for mobility is just going to increase quite a bit. And the endpoints are going to consume or going to be able to support a very, very high bandwidth data stream for the business cases we just talked about. All of that is supported by a robust fiber backhaul that is kind of a given, right? Whether it's mid haul, front haul, or backhaul. A very robust, shared point to multi-point infrastructure or point-to-point infrastructure is required. And the direction that the world appears to be taking today is to blend these in a very high capacity cabling infrastructure that delivers the the growth as the demand grows in the that supports the connectivity growth as the demand grows over time. So that is one challenge that, especially in the Indian context, I think we have to pay attention to, and clearly that is on the mind of the government as well. That needs to be done. The second important area I would highlight is, as we move closer to the customer, as we move the connectivity infrastructure, it's also important to understand that robust power is required. The distribution of either AC or DC or a very clean rectified power is required to support this infrastructure, whether it's a pico cell or a femto or a small cell or a tower macro. Its backup, its health monitoring, and a number of issues surrounding to power delivery needs to be addressed, and that I would say put that in the context of the infrastructure needs of the upcoming growth in the mobility area. So the two things are.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Badri. I think you've covered a very important aspect.
Yeah.
I'll try to take Randeep's view also on one very important aspect, which is connected to what Mr. Badri also said. The crux of what Mr. Badri is saying is that the network ecosystem is itself going to undergo a very big change. From a customer perspective, even the service orchestration layer is going to undergo a change with so much of changes technology around us. What is your view on how is this ecosystem itself going to change, and how will it actually ultimately benefit the customer from an organization perspective and from a customer's perspective?
I think this network automation and service orchestration, they will come into picture, much more effectively than what we have seen in the recent past in the erstwhile technologies. Primarily because of the fact that it's not only just providing a layer of a connectivity, but you are now getting into an era of where the network has to be sliced. And when you slice that network and pass that on to a consumer, which would be an industrial IoT consumer, you have to assure a certain degree of KPIs and SLAs to him for him to be able to get that level of productivity and efficiency gains, which this technology guarantees. And now we do believe that network automation will play a very key enabler role of connecting the future billion devices. We have had an experience of connecting billions of people. Now, when you talk about the devices, it's a different ball game altogether, and that's where a touchless provisioning and a seamless migration of new platforms would be needed, and that cannot be enabled through too much of human intervention. So you need a service orchestration layer to be able to get that zero touch or touchless provisioning, and then seamless migration or integration of the applications, because as one of the panelists was clearly saying, that it's not that in the case of IoT, one network size fits all. You will have varied and different type of applications and use cases which has to run, and that would vary from one industry to another, one service to another. And that's very important factor that we have to keep into consideration, that the digital automation, the digital services, and in particular the service automation, which will become a service orchestration layer on top of the connectivity layer, will ensure that there is a frictionless adoption of IoT services and IoT applications and IoT use cases. But the fact of the matter is that it is just not that one layer which will do the magic. When we talk about automation and service orchestration, one has to ensure that it has to be managed completely end-to-end, instead of working it in silos, so that the maximum benefits can be arrived. For example, you can have a quality of service at a radio level, but if you are not doing a service assurance at a core level, you are not going to get a desired results or maximize the benefits that a particular industry or a particular use case wants. So the point I'm trying to make here is that while service orchestration is a big buzzword now, but unless and until it is seen in a completely end-to-end view and managed totally in that holistic approach, the service orchestration itself is not going to give the benefits as we want it to be. So network automation with an end-to-end and a seamless connectivity, a proper system integration of the devices, including the application layer, physical layer, and the security layer, they all have to be provisioned, and that has to be seamless, and that's an important factor which has to be considered while designing the architecture for the new networks or the networks of future, which will have billions of devices working on them.
So, Randeep, very nice to hear this concept. The intelligent service orchestration is what you're actually summarizing, and very, very critical. Jonathan, if I can just take a lead into you from what Randeep has actually mentioned. In addition to an effective service orchestration, one important area that might need to be taken into consideration is also the security and the vulnerability of devices, not only devices, but the whole ecosystem in the context of the network landscape that we might be seeing in the future. Can you share with us some views from your side on how do you see organizations, especially the ones that you currently work for or in the past, have actually dealt with very sensitive trust issue when it comes to security, vulnerability, when it comes to a network landscape perspective? What are the good practices that you see are being implemented?
Thank you. Yes, security is certainly coming to the forefront within this new kind of ecosystems that we're talking about. When we're getting into the more advanced kind of orchestration that's already been talked about and more complex networks, in order to provide the kind of stratification and the network slicing that we need to support these different kinds of services, obviously we're getting into more complex networks with more complex controls for these networks. So as a result of that, we're also opening up more avenues to people that might want to hack these networks because of the complexities of the networks themselves and the multi-degrees of controls that can come over them. So security is probably one of the leading aspects that needs to be paid attention to in any kind of solution that's put forth by the industry. This is end-to-end. Of course, in terms of device security and application security, that runs over the network, and that's taking place at a higher level. Within the network itself, we need mechanisms that span all the way from the control of the network in terms of how the network entities speak to the control layer and to the orchestration layer to make sure that everyone recognizes the people that are exercising the control are the people that are supposed to be exercising the control and not some third party like some man in the middle. And the other aspect to security that we're particularly paying attention to is because we're looking at a network where there's a high degree of sharing of resources for different strata or different slices of the network, it's very important that these slices do not impinge on each other, that one slice does not overuse the resources from another slice when it's shared. And if someone, for instance, a private network running, say, some industrial IoT application is running over this common infrastructure, that it has a very high degree of isolation from other parts of the network, that it has a very, very high degree of security and assurance that no one else can infringe on that. One of the concepts that we're particularly looking at with respect to implementing this is combining two types of what we call slicing technology. There's hard slicing technology and soft slicing technology. Today, primarily when we build network slices, we use soft slicing, such as VPNs, or just using some type of priority routing in the network. What we're looking at as well is combining that, which exists, of course, today in terms of how we deliver services, with hard slices, where you provide a very high degree of isolation using technology such as flexible Ethernet or optical channels, specifically dedicated to specific users, and then building soft slices on top of that. And this way, what you're doing is at the infrastructure layer, which is, of course, the concern of our company, how we provide a high degree of security and isolation from one set of users to other sets of users.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm very happy that you covered the area of network slicing, very important concept, both on especially in the area of soft slicing. So if I can just move to you, Digvijay, and I just want to cover one last aspect, which is also very critical from an India perspective. It has very much effectively happened globally when it comes to network landscaping and measuring the network. The role of cloudification is very critical. And I know that your organization has worked very effectively in that space when it comes to 5G, the rollout of SDN and NFV. Can you throw some light on how is cloudification of network architecture going to change the landscape for the telecom industry and the future of mobility going forward?
Good thing that cloudification provides is the fact that you get away from physical infrastructure that needs to be there with all the enterprises on their own. Like if we talk about even today, while we are working from home, there was a time in which everybody used to connect to the mailbox, and Microsoft Exchange used to be in your offices. With Office 365 and all these services coming on cloud, enterprises don't need to have their own setups in their offices. So I'll just touch upon the enterprise aspect of cloud, and then we'll get into the because in cloud there are various aspects of it, and then depending upon how you want to touch it, there's a public cloud, there's private cloud, then there's telco cloud, and there is enterprise related things that are coming onto cloud. Now, if we talk about IoT, there are large number of users coming in. There are various kind of services that are being offered right now today, and they are latching on directly onto the cloud. The key aspect of it with Internet of Things coming in, 5G coming in, is the fact that how faster you reach to the cloud. Because right now in the current context, what happens, you have a device, it connects to a tower, then to your access device, then to a city aggregation, then to regional aggregation, then to port, and then to internet, and where resides the cloud. Wherein most of the things, the kind of latency that would be needed for, let's say, robotics, remote surgery, and various Internet of Things related things require very low latency. And for gaming also, you need very immersive experience. For that, this cloud needs to move to the edge, right? And that gives to a term that is very widely spoken in industries, mobile edge compute. So this cloud per se definitely has got benefits, which is known to masses, because everything is residing in a big data center where you have cost of efficiencies, and you're getting beyond the aging part of the infrastructure, and virtualization gives its own benefit. But another aspect that comes in with IoT is the fact that there would be mobile edge compute, as Badri said in the beginning, that mobile edge compute with the cloud would be moving instead of core to the edge, right? And that plays another new dynamic, overall architectural aspect at how the networks would be laid. So the key role of cloud here is changing a bit. There's a shift that is coming onto it, and the virtualization aspect is very key in that. But at the same time, the location of these data and compute would happen on edge with IoT coming into the equation. So that is the change in the cloud architecture compared to from past to going forward, when we are going to connect these billions of devices. Benefits of cloud, coming back to your original point, cloud gives us a lot of scale and flexibility as far as we continue to adopt to newer technology. The kind of scale which was earlier bound by certain compute resources is no longer relevant now. The capacity that you see in public clouds is enormous. Like earlier we heard there are stories like Amazon or Flipkart sales, during peak sales, the servers used to crash and things like those things are history, because they are residing on cloud, where as and when resources are needed, they are provided to them. So this elasticity of scale is provided by cloud, and it helps you to handle the scale and the complexity that comes with IoT. And another key aspect, to sum it up, this cloud will no longer remain to big data centers that are there in certain key location. This cloud is going to move to the edge to provide immersive experience around AR and VR, to provide latency to certain applications like driverless cars and things like that.
Thank you, Digvijay. Mr. Badri, if I can just take the benefit of your experience on addressing one very important aspect when it comes to emerging technologies. You did actually use an important concept of edge computing. Specific questions I have with reference to edge computing is that how do you see, with so much of information overload that is actually going to happen, and I mean, not that it is not important, with so much of information that is going to be made available with the future of mobility and also devices, where do you see the role of intelligence in on the analytics domain, and what kind of intelligence can be derived from this? Where do you see customers benefiting from so much of information that is actually coming through this?
Yeah, sure. Hey, so I think a number of us have also sort of talked about this in one form or the other. The first part is that it is moving towards the so-called edge of the network, closer to the customer. What that means is that time between some event that requires analysis and the time that the analysis is complete, that will come down. To put it in a very simple way, that's a feature of the network. But then to your point now, hey, look, there is this deluge of information. There is so much coming at you. What do you have to do to make a useful, let's say, outcome or decision or analysis? This whole area is actually going through a fairly interesting transformation even as we speak. This idea of inference at the edge, right? Two parts. One that I see that's very interesting. That's the market and the let's say the startup ecosystem is responding to is hardware acceleration. The same compute that you buy today, you take for granted as a server, is undergoing a transformation to add on capabilities in accelerating the rate at which you can process this information at the edge. And the algorithms that are going to be able to support that are also becoming, more and more efficient. And by now, the machine learning and the AI, world has set benchmark upon itself that provides a tremendous confidence that this kind of information deluge that will come to us can be analyzed quickly. And with the hardware acceleration that's going to come at the edge, it will create a sort of a much better, economics for asking the question for the analytics part. So I think these two things, if you see, you put it together, will create the solution framework to put that together. Now, what kind of people are going to require this? So in our own factories, basically, we, I'm just going to take one example, manufacturing. This is a pretty important, question to answer, because as you engage in more and more automation, a lot of the work that you want to offload, reduce your manufacturing costs, and so on and so forth, will necessitate utilization of this capability, right? So factory automation, business intelligence, market forecasting. I can just go on and on about the number of examples. It just it is difficult to enumerate, what kind of customers will require that, but the underlying infrastructure that is going to support this, there's a lot of excitement around it, in my view.
Thank you. Randeep, if I can just quickly move to you and address the same question in a different way. Cloud providers are now also ubiquitous, and they are also offering multiple solutions. Machine learning is becoming the new normal when it comes to the computational power and what kind of benefits it can actually derive. Can you share your experience quickly from the transformation that you're seeing and the use of machine learning in enhancing network experience?
I think, Purushottam, it's a very great question. As Dr. Badri also said that, the new age hardware capabilities are now getting much more, I must say, stringent and capable to be able to perform some of those capabilities at the network itself. And, to that effect, we at Nokia are also, using the artificial intelligence and machine learning as part of our embedded product portfolio to be able to derive the benefits, not that you have to put any independent layer to do that kind of, I must say, machine learning from the market itself. So we are kind of moving and keeping pace with the developments in AI ML space, and incorporating that as part of our product offerings and portfolio to the customers. So that has a benefit that operators will get that by default, in terms of at least getting the learnings or the deep analysis from the network through some of the intelligence that is already available in the hardware or the solutions that are being provided. And the second layer would be anyway, which is more about understanding the customer perception, their perceived value, their quality of service, wherein AI ML hasn't taken too much of pace yet. But then I think that's an area where a lot of development is going to take shape in the future, in, I must say, next 2 to 3 years, especially with the advent of 5G, which is giving you enormous capacity to be able to serve billions of devices and create that massive capacity in terms of connecting machines, connecting devices, connecting societies. Unless until AI ML comes into the play, I think we will be just not doing justice to the technology itself. And we do see from the interest that customers have, especially the service providers, they want to understand the behavior of the users, from a consumer standpoint, in terms of how they behave with the pipe that is getting opened, and a lot of data is now getting spread into that pipe. So how they will kind of utilize that data in terms of addressing their needs, addressing their lifestyles, and also addressing their requirements in terms of the data speeds that they want. But at the other end, when you talk about the industrial IoT, so that machine learning has to be embedded in the premise itself. And that's where I agree with Dr. Badri and Digvijay, that the networks of the future will have to undergo a lot of transformation, and they need to be horizontally split instead of being vertically integrated, which means that the intelligence and the compute power will have to be located much closer to the sites rather than at the back end, and that intelligence has to be embedded in the devices itself. So we would see a lot of AI ML functionality not only coming into the products, and it's not just going to be a software game alone, but it will be embedded in the hardware, so that you derive a lot of benefits out of that. And then having that closer in terms of machine learning capabilities, closer to the users, closer to the devices, will ensure that the combination and the complementary power of intelligence and the compute is being really leveraged to a large extent, which can then translate into much more efficiencies and productivity that 5G promises as part of the technology advantage.
Thank you, Randeep. Jonathan, if I can quickly move to you in the interest of time as well. Randeep did allude to the importance of intelligent analytics, but he also mentioned that the adoption has not been as successful. Can you share some of your views on what areas would you like to orient the customers in the area of machine learning, analytics, and the power of the actual compute when it comes to 5G and the futuristic networks? What kind of orientation would you like to give to the customers, and where do you see the real need in educating the customers on the power of compute?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a matter of educating the customers on compute as much of taking advantage of the powers of compute and what that can do for the customers themselves. I think has been said when it comes to the whole area of ML and analytics that there's really two areas that could be applied to. I think it's been well covered in terms of how it can be applied to the network itself to continuously optimize the network, that we can make the highest efficiencies from just a given set of resources. The other way that it can be applied, of course, is towards the consumer itself and the kind of offerings that we give to the consumer. We're already seeing this today when you go online, and the kind of ads that pop up in front of you when you're browsing are all driven by ML engines. If you go on Netflix and they want to suggest a movie, that's driven by ML engines. I think when it comes to consumers of telecommunications services, or maybe some of the vertical applications that run on top of it, one of the powers of analytics, of course, will be in the hands of the people offering those services, the telecommunications services or the applications running on top, such as for e-health or for gaming. And then this could either make sense to the consumer in terms of the kind of services they want to consume, or it could actually make changes behind the scenes that the consumers aren't even aware of to give them a better user experience such that they'll stay with a particular provider. This might not sound as something which people might like or not, because their service is being adjusted based on their needs. But I think that's already happening to us right now. If you believe that we're sort of being limited in the amount of free choice that we have, and the kind of things that are being pushed our way, and the kind of decisions that we're being steered to, I think more and more we'll see analytics doing that. But again, from a beneficial point of view, to make the overall user experience more enjoyable for the kind of things that they're looking for.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'll quickly move to Digvijay. And Digvijay, I have this last question for you. Thank you for all your views prior to this. Specifically, from my experience on working and servicing different kind of customers, each customer is quite unique. What has been your experience in actually servicing customers in different industries, and what role do you play of service providers like you with sophisticated technology ecosystem? How do you customize your solutions to the different industry needs and specific customer needs?
So in order to win any business, you have to meet the customer requirements, and pardon me. So and every customer is unique, right? And you need to understand their asks and come up with the solutions that fits them most. Ciena traditionally being US-based company, where the fiber resiliency comes as given to them. The physical infrastructure is great, but when you come to India, there are infrastructural issues that Randeep and Dr. Badri clearly spoke about. Fiber cuts is a reality in India. The number of fiber cuts is probably the highest in the world, if I'm not wrong. So we customize our solutions by ensuring that we keep bringing them the uptime, right? So Ciena's control plane give them the kind of resilience to the network by building resiliencies and giving them restorations without impacting their end services. So control plane is one aspect of it, one classic example of it. And then getting on to certain tough terrains that we need to meet as part of we cannot have amplification sites in between. We ensure that our 800 gig, 900 gig solutions, which are adaptive in nature, we cover distance, and where the fiber losses are good, we provide them higher capacities. So it's a trade-off that we do depending upon their requirements. And something which is very specific to India that we have done is something that is called low-cost WDM. Which is very cost-effective WDM technology that we have implemented in for Indian customers. It's a common thing, but when it started, it was a new thing. It basically helps them to save on fiber, and those things we have done. And now we are doing very cost-effective 100 gig access solutions for them, and very cost-effective adaptive IP solutions for them. So depending upon customer requirements, we have to understand them, and there are finer nuances that we can do. Just linking towards what Jonathan said, learning towards AI and ML. Right now, we are developing with Indian customers how to provision resources where the fiber cut and fiber failures are lesser to optimize resources, and that is based on the actual events. Based on the alarms that are triggered in the network. So we capture in our network management system all the plethora of alarms that are getting generated in nationwide networks, and we do some machine learning around it. And based on those analytics, our control plane driven solutions are going to define the services in the network. It is not only for the newer services, but also for the existing services, how customers are going to optimize those resources in better manner. So while we continue, so simple answer to that, we have done multiple of those things working with various customers, and we continue to develop those things while working closely with them and understanding their needs and requirements. And with newer technologies like AI, ML, data lakes, and all those things, it's becoming all the more easier to do. That's how I would sum it up.
Thank you, Digvijay. I'd like to thank all the panelists. I think it was a very interesting session. Very much grateful to all of you for your views. We heard everything from the importance of edge computing, the challenges in the network, the challenges in administering a very complex ecosystem, at the same time servicing the customers for their different needs, a secure system with very easily implementable network slicing sophistication that can be actually brought in to the business cases that will actually service each and every type of customer segment. The challenges from my experience, from whatever limited work I have been actually working with service providers like yourself, is that every customer is quite unique. Their challenges are quite unique. And unless we are able to adopt our solutions to service their needs, we are not going to have a good implementation. Thank you very much. With that note, very eager to meet you in person. But until we all get back to our a normal, this is our new normal. But thank you very much for a very engaging session. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a very insightful panel. I hope our viewers are finding our presentation of the 25 years of mobility program informative and extremely engaging. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We will be back with our third episode very soon. You can keep track of the schedule of the India Mobile Congress website and social media handles for future information. Thank you and goodbye. Stay safe.